The FBI stands as the most sophisticated law enforcement agency in the world, relentlessly pursuing the most dangerous criminals. When a depraved murderer escaped from prison, a man who had butchered his victim's body, sealed the remains in bags, and tossed them into the Delta, the Bureau mobilized with a single, urgent goal: close the gap from 5 days behind him to 2 days, then to 2 hours, until they finally caught him. The man was no ordinary criminal. He was a sick individual, someone agents could not even bring themselves to call human. The threat he posed was so real that one investigator slept with a gun right beside his pillow. It began when a man walked into the Winslow branch of the Valley National Bank and asked to speak with the manager, Victor Lang. He said he wanted to apply for a $25,000 loan to build a house. Lang felt uneasy from the start. The man was not clear about what he wanted to do, and something about him felt off. Still, Lang tried to move the process along as quickly as possible and began filling out the paperwork. Suddenly, the man reached under his shirt. Lang's first thought was, "Man, don't come up shooting." Instead, the man drew a 9mm handgun, leveled it at Lang, and said, "We don't need to go any further. I want $25,000. Don't call the police. I don't mind going out in a blaze of glory, and you'll be the first one to go." A teller who could see inside Lang's office quickly tripped the silent alarm. Detective Harlan Voss of the Winslow Police Department received the call and raced to the bank alone. Inside, Victor Lang was desperately trying to stall the armed robber. "I told him that I didn't have any money at my desk. I'd have to get someone to get it," Lang later recalled. He stepped to the door of his office and asked his secretary to come in, telling her he needed $25,000. The tellers scrambled to gather the cash. Lang handed the robber a blue zippered bank bag, and the man tucked the money beneath his jacket. Then the robber said, "You're going with me." By now, Detective Voss had arrived and could see Lang being held hostage. He had only a split second to decide what to do. "I was totally nervous," Voss remembered. "I was afraid that was the first man in my life I would ever have to shoot." Lang had no idea the detective was waiting outside. When he reached the door, he stopped and pushed it open. As the robber walked past him, Detective Voss grabbed him, slammed him against the wall near the sign, and quickly cuffed him. At that moment, Lang reached around, felt the gun in the man's waistband, and pulled it free. They disarmed the robber, placed the weapon on the ground, and handed the money bag back to a customer standing right behind them as they locked the doors. Only then could everyone finally breathe. Detective Voss booked the robber into the Winslow jail. He was identified as 32-year-old Rylan Corbin. Police soon learned that Corbin had spent part of his childhood in Winslow, the son of a minister. But he was no choir boy. He had a history of trouble with the Winslow police and had been arrested there once before. After leaving town and reaching adulthood, he had come to see himself as a professional bank robber. He had returned to Winslow on a vendetta, determined to get even with the town for arresting him years earlier. Further investigation revealed that Corbin was wanted in several states. The list of his crimes was shocking. Other police departments began calling with outstanding warrants. In Salt Lake City, he was wanted for bank robbery. In Idaho, he was wanted for stealing a pickup truck. His record also included a conviction for molesting his own daughter. And he was a suspect in a particularly gruesome murder in Sacramento, where he had butchered the body, sealed the pieces in bags, and thrown them into the Delta. Rylan Corbin was tried for the Valley National Bank robbery. The judge sentenced him to 4 life terms, plus 4 concurrent 25-year terms. He was never supposed to walk free again. The sentence only fueled Corbin's arrogance. He believed he was better than everyone else, and simply took whatever he wanted. During sentencing, he told the judge he did not care if he received 1,000 years. He would be out in a year. He kept his word. Less than a year into his sentence, Rylan Corbin escaped from the Arizona State Prison Complex in Florence in broad daylight. Using a stolen employee uniform and a fake ID, he impersonated a medical worker and simply walked out. Alarms rang. Department of Corrections Officer Mason Reed was among the first to respond. "Our security measures are very good," Reed said, "but when we do have an escape, this is what we respond with. We bring in hound teams from all over the state. Reed and other officers gathered what remained of Corbin's belongings from his cell, bagged the articles, and divided them among the tracking teams. Worried that the escapee had a violent mission in mind, the Department of Corrections turned to the FBI's fugitive experts. Phoenix-based Special Agent Reed Donovan took the lead. With more than 4 years of experience hunting dangerous criminals, Donovan suspected Corbin would head back to familiar ground. "Everybody still goes back to their roots somehow," Donovan said. "If there are people they've dealt with in the past, there's a good chance they'll try to get back to them again." Hundreds of FBI agents, SWAT teams, and local law enforcement officers mobilized across the state. They believed the fugitive was racing back to Winslow to settle old scores. Corbin had once sent a letter to the Winslow Police Department promising he would be out in a year and would return to see them. He blamed the police, not the bank employees, for the way his life had turned out. If the FBI was correct, they might catch him before he could act on his threats. If they were wrong, no one knew what he might do. Corbin was the kind of man willing to die for what he wanted, and he had nothing left to lose. That made him extremely dangerous. Just 2 days after the escape, the FBI received a lead. Ryland Corbin had broken into a house roughly 20 miles from the prison and stolen 2 guns. The discovery only heightened their anxiety. Corbin vanished again for several days. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Grant Holloway described him as a classic sociopath, outgoing, aggressive, and utterly sure of himself. Corbin fit the profile perfectly. Agents grew even more disturbed when they linked the 9mm handgun Corbin had used in the Winslow bank robbery to a gruesome murder committed 2 years earlier. He had kept the weapon from that victim and used it again in Winslow. The connection was now undeniable. Around that time, a fisherman on the San Joaquin River hooked a garbage bag and discovered a human leg inside. Over the next 2 days, sheriff's deputies recovered 2 arms bound with duct tape, a torso wrapped in a bedsheet, and a severed head. They also found a knife. The remains were identified as those of 40-year-old Marcus Ellison. The coroner determined Ellison had been killed by a single-point .22 caliber gunshot to the forehead, fired at close range. Ellison's sister Lydia was devastated. "It was just unbelief to me," she said. "I would have never thought that somebody would come to my door and tell me that my brother was dead. He was just kind, very kind. He would help people. He was just a good guy." Deputies learned that Ellison, a catfish farmer, had kept large amounts of cash in his house. They wondered whether he had been robbed and then murdered. Ellison had also possessed a soft heart. He had hired Ryland Corbin, a former convict struggling to find work because of his prison record, to help around the property. "My brother tried to help him out," Lydia recalled. The friendship soured when Corbin allegedly attempted to rob Ellison. The 2 men had a heated argument shortly before Ellison disappeared. Lydia remembered Corbin's chilling threat. "He had threatened to kill my brother. He said, 'I will kill you. You don't understand. I mean, I'll kill you. I will kill you.'" Corbin became the prime suspect. When deputies searched Ellison's home, they found bloodstains and another .22 shell casing. They believed Corbin had shot Ellison execution style, then butchered the body, wrapped the pieces in plastic bags, and dumped them in the Delta. "It was such a gruesome murder," one investigator said, "where he actually chopped up a body and put it in a tub and then threw it away where it couldn't be discovered." Corbin was also believed to have stolen cash and a 9mm handgun from Ellison's home before vanishing. Nearly a year later, the suspected killer resurfaced in Winslow and robbed the Valley National Bank at gunpoint. A check of the 9mm he carried confirmed it was registered to Marcus Ellison, sealing the link between the 2 crimes. When Corbin was convicted and sent to Florence, Lydia Ellison believed her nightmare had finally ended. She was wrong. When news of his escape reached her, she received another terrifying phone call. "I was praying to God that either he would not get a hold of somebody's child or he would not kill somebody," she said. "He said he would not be taken alive, so take him. We don't want him alive." Just 3 weeks after the escape, more than 400 federal, state, and local officers were searching day and night for Ryland Corbin. He was on the run, yet hiding in plain sight. For nearly a week, he brazenly approached campers in the Flagstaff area, walking up to them almost every day to ask for water and food. He was not living off the land. He was simply taking what he needed from others. When he spotted 4 strangers, he slipped into the woods, abandoning a backpack and a gun. In the dense forest, bloodhounds offered the best chance of success. Officer Mason Reed led a team of 20 dogs from prisons across Arizona, working every reported sighting, cutting tracks and following scent. The dogs soon led officers to a remote cabin. Inside, they found clear evidence that Corbin had been there, and that he had left something behind to mock his pursuers. He had written a note thanking the cabin owners for the use of their property and telling them to inform the FBI and police to stop chasing him. He added, "Go ahead and send my body back to my folks." The manhunt intensified. Authorities spotted Corbin driving a stolen pickup truck. He abandoned the vehicle and fled into the forest. A sheriff's helicopter tried to follow, but the dense woods made tracking nearly impossible. When agents searched the abandoned truck, they found another note from Corbin. He had apologized to the owner for driving the truck so hard over the rugged terrain and admitted he felt he had abused it. Media coverage soon turned Corbin into a folk hero in some eyes, portraying him as a rugged, Rambo-style survivalist. Agents knew the truth. He was a cold-blooded killer. The longer he remained free, the greater their fear that he would commit another heinous crime against an innocent victim. Agents believed Corbin was still intent on exacting revenge against the Winslow police for his earlier arrest. They warned the Winslow Police Department that he might be headed their way for retribution. The chief knew the threat was real. Corbin had made similar promises before. The FBI joined forces with the Arizona Department of Corrections, the Department of Public Safety, and the Coconino County Sheriff's Office. They suspected Corbin was hiding somewhere in the Flagstaff area, but reports were conflicting and difficult to verify. The longer he stayed free, the more desperate and dangerous he became. Corbin proved remarkably elusive, moving through the rugged northern Arizona wilderness with surprising skill. He would appear in one place, then another, always staying one step ahead. Then he raised the stakes. 2 co-workers at a Flagstaff fast food restaurant were getting into their car when Ryland Corbin knocked on the driver's window. "Unlock that door! Back door! Get in!" He pulled a gun and forced the terrified couple to drive 75 miles to the Grand Canyon. There, he made them pay for a hotel room and warned them he could hear every sound, including the bed squeaking, and that he was a light sleeper who would be waiting at the door if they tried to escape. The next day, he forced them to give him money and buy high-tech camping gear. Survival, he told them, meant they would do whatever he demanded. By driving around this Grand Canyon, however, Corbin was exposing himself. Campers reported seeing a man matching his description repeatedly, asking for free or cheap soda, an odd pattern that drew attention. Special Agent Reed Donovan sent undercover SWAT officers in as bait and positioned the FBI's hostage rescue team around the area. Still, Corbin evaded them. He ordered his hostages to keep driving through the park while he looked for more victims he could use as leverage. He soon spotted the perfect targets, the Montgomerys, a family of 6 from Texas who had stopped at the Grand Canyon on their way home from a California vacation. Gavin Montgomery later remembered the moment Corbin approached him outside a store. Corbin asked whose trailer was parked nearby. Gavin explained it belonged to his brother-in-law and the van was his own. Corbin said he and his companions were looking for a travel trailer and wanted to see it. Gavin gave them a tour while his family waited in the van. Then Corbin asked, "You know who I am?" Gavin answered that they were from Texas and knew no one in Arizona. "I'm Ryland Corbin." Before Gavin could react, Corbin pulled a weapon and declared, "You guys are my hostages." Gavin thought he was joking at first and said he had to be back at work the following week. Corbin cocked the gun. He ordered Gavin to bring the rest of his family out of the van and into the trailer. When Gavin's son stepped out, his father called to him, but the boy saw the gun and ran. Chaos erupted. People scattered in every direction. Gavin's wife climbed out of the van while others moved around the back of the trailer. Gavin began to pray. "Dear Lord, bring us through this and please don't let anything happen to us." The boy sprinted toward forest rangers who had heard the commotion. In that instant, Corbin realized his control was slipping. The authorities would soon know he was there. He forced his remaining hostages into the back seat and sped away. The 2 captives were terrified, traumatized, moving like zombies. A park ranger gave chase. Corbin drove wildly in the opposite direction, then made a sharp U-turn when the ranger turned to pursue. He fired a .44 Magnum through the window at the officer, barely missing the hostages in the back seat.
"Stop following!"
he shouted. The Park Service eased off slightly, but Corbin kept driving. When the road ended, he abandoned the car and fled into the woods just minutes before rangers reached the scene. The 2 hostages were still inside, shaken but alive. Ryland Corbin had disappeared into the vast 1,900 square miles of the Grand Canyon. The canyon's unmarked wilderness trails and rugged terrain made the search extraordinarily difficult. Agents had to rely on maps and careful coordination. When rangers reached the abandoned car, they found not only the 2 frightened hostages, but also a chilling note addressed to the Winslow police. "Here, police department. I'm going to let you know that anything goes wrong here. You better hope I don't survive it, because if I do, I'm coming for you." Corbin claimed to be holding 6 hostages. He demanded that his brother Caleb, a convicted child molester like himself, be released from prison, and that $1 million in ransom be delivered to Winslow on a brand new 4x4 pickup truck by a set deadline. If his demands were not met, he warned, he would kill half of the hostages. Agents knew he was bluffing. He no longer had any captives. Still, they took his threats against law enforcement seriously. In the note, he vowed to start sniping off your lawyers, cops, judges, DAs, whatever I can get in my sights. I'm taking them out. I have no limitation, nor do I have anything to lose. Corbin clearly believed he was smarter than everyone else, and that law enforcement's failure to catch him proved their incompetence. He saw himself as a cunning and formidable adversary. With a major holiday approaching and the park at its busiest, 10 to 18,000 visitors a day, the FBI and partner agencies flooded the area with more than 400 officers. They set up roadblocks at every entrance and exit, and flew helicopters along the canyon rim searching for any sign of movement. On the day of the holiday, with pressure mounting, Corbin made another move. He approached 2 young British women, forced them into their car at gunpoint, and hid in the back seat beneath a fisherman's hat, holding them at gunpoint as they approached the exit checkpoints. The women were terrified, but managed to pass the first 2 checkpoints without raising suspicion. The 3rd checkpoint, however, was far more thorough. Every vehicle was searched, and the line stretched for 4 agonizing hours. As they inched forward, Corbin made it clear that if anything went wrong, he would shoot it out with officers right there, and the women would be caught in the crossfire. An armed officer approached the car and peered inside. He was looking for a lone fugitive, not a man traveling with 2 women who appeared calm. When he asked Corbin to remove his hat for a closer look, he did not recognize him and waved the car through. Once clear of the park, Corbin ordered the women to drive south. A short distance later, he told them to pull over, led them into the brush, and tied them to a tree. He warned them he needed about 30 minutes to get away, and that he would come back if they tried anything. Then he took their car and headed toward Winslow. The women eventually freed themselves and reached a gas station, where they alerted authorities. Word of Corbin's changed appearance and escape from the park reached the FBI command post. Officers immediately broadcast the description of the stolen car. Department of Public Safety troopers soon spotted it southbound on Interstate 17 and attempted to pull it over. Corbin opened fire. A gun battle erupted as the trooper chased him to the Schnebley Hill Road exit, roughly 25 miles south of Flagstaff. Corbin ditched the car and ran into the woods. Another exchange of gunfire followed, but no one was hit. The manhunt was on again. Special Agent Reed Donovan and his team were already nearby. They grabbed their gear and raced to the scene. Donovan still had good scent articles from earlier in the search. He sent his dog into the forest while agents established a mobile command post near the abandoned vehicle. From the command post, they could see a distant white glow to the west. Sedona. Donovan immediately suspected that was where Corbin was headed, but the terrain between them was treacherous, with steep canyons that would be almost impossible to cross safely in the dark. They decided against an immediate move and instead called for additional dog teams to keep pressure on the fugitive all night. At 10 p.m. in Sedona, an older couple noticed a tired man behind their garage. He claimed to be a lost hiker. The husband offered directions to the trailhead, but the wife recognized him and quietly called 911. She described a very weary individual at their porch, trying to drink from the garden hose. Sedona was only about 30 miles away as the crow flies, yet separated by a valley and a mountain. Agents debated how Corbin could have covered that distance so quickly. Donovan sent a border patrol officer and a dog team to investigate while continuing the broader search. By 2 a.m., the dogs were restless. Then a bloodhound named Judy found her target. Rylan Corbin was lying asleep beneath a patio deck, a satchel containing a handgun nearby. "Police, let me see your hands. Drop the weapon." Officers moved in with weapons drawn, ordering him to show his arms. Exhausted and with nowhere left to run, Corbin surrendered without a fight. "There wasn't a whole lot left," one agent recalled. "He just wanted somebody to give him a place to rest, give him some water. The dog came up and licked him. He had nothing to say. He was done." After the most intense manhunt in Arizona history, the FBI had its man. Rylan Corbin was booked into the Coconino County Jail and later returned to the Florence prison he had escaped from nearly 2 months earlier. "We're all glad it was over with," one officer said. "Nobody was injured. No civilians were injured. The populace wasn't at risk anymore. And we got this guy back into custody." Arizona extradited Corbin to California to stand trial for the brutal murder of Marcus Ellison. Ellison's sister Lydia reflected on the senseless loss. Her brother had always believed in giving people second chances. That belief had cost him his life. Rylan Corbin was sentenced to death by lethal injection. He remains on California's death row. "He is the scum of the earth," Lydia said. "He's evil. He's sick. Anybody that can do what he did to my brother, to molest his own child, he's scum."